When I was a kid, for me, the car was always the Ferrari 308. Can't really pin down to an exact thing. Everyone will say, oh, it's Magnum PI. Maybe it was Magnum PI. I remember there being some photographs that my dad and my uncle used to own an auto body shop, and they had a 308 come through there, so there was memories of that. But there was something about the shape of that car that for me, it was the ultimate. Beautifully balanced, beautifully proportioned. I just loved everything about it. For the longest time, everybody loved the GTS, which is the one with the removable roof. But for me, the car to have is the GTB. Now it seems to have come around where people seem to like the GTBs better, but for me, the clean lines of the GTB, the quarter windows on them, just the swooping shape, is just fantastic. And I always dreamed of getting one, and that was the car that was always on the radar, and told myself that, if I ever made any money, that would be the car to have. So fast forward to 2002, I had just started my company, and my best friend, tells me that he's going to get married, and he'd like me to be the best man. And so when your lifelong friend tells you that he's going to get married, it kind of puts life into perspective a little bit. I'm in my early to mid-20s, and it makes you just kind of think about life a little bit differently. So I'd committed myself in my mind and said, you know what? I'm going to drive my best friend to his wedding in my 308. That's what I'm going to do. But I didn't know where to start. But it's amazing how when you turn your attention to something, how you start going in that direction. I signed up for Ferrari Chat, started looking around, looked a little bit on eBay, looked in other places, but eventually what I did was I amassed a really big group of emails and put one email out and saying, hey, looking for a Ferrari 308 GTB. I wanted an early car because the early cars had carburetors, the later cars were fuel injected. So I wanted an early carburetor car, had to be a GTB, and preferably red. First one's got to be red. A few messages here and there, nothing really. And then a really nice gentleman contacted me from California. I'm in Canada. And he says, I think I got the car for you. His name was Bill. And I've gone on to nickname him GT Bill. He sends me some pictures of the car. And at the time, he was asking $28,000 for the car. Now, early 2000s, essentially a carbureted GTB, because at the time, again, the GTSs were a little bit more desirable. Any number with a 30 was unsaleable. But he had this car, 18,000 miles, and I know we always laugh that all 308s have 18,000 miles on them, but this one, it all seemed to add up. It seemed pretty legit. And I talked to him on the phone a little bit, and I explained to him my situation. And I told him, I said, where are you price-wise? And he told me, and he said that the car was on consignment for a little while. He sent me a bunch of pictures of the car, and we decided that I was going to come down and have a look at it. And what we did was we actually agreed in principle to a price on the car. And so we agreed to $23,000, which was fabulous. Problem was I didn't have $23,000, but we'll get to that in a moment. So what ends up happening is I liquidate pretty well all of my existence, and it works out to essentially exactly $20,000 cash. And you're not allowed to travel across international borders with more than $10,000. So I came with my brother, and we each traveled with $10,000 cash in our pockets to go see this car in California. We arrive in California, and little tip of the trade here is do not travel to see a car with someone who is equally as crazy as you are about the car. Because I saw the car from 40 feet away and essentially bought it in my mind, fell in love with it completely. It was just one of those moments. So you show up, you try to act cool a little bit, but you're just giddy with excitement. And I remember that we went for a test drive, and while we were driving, I was with my brother. A 360 was coming the other way, which would have been the contemporary car at the time. And, the guy gives me a little bit of a thumbs up. It's like, this car's sold. The engine could have fallen out of it right there, and I would have bought it. So we get back to Bill's house. He invites us in, and we sit down at the kitchen table. And right at that moment, the phone rings. He picks up the phone, and he gets on the phone. He's like, yeah, they're here. Yeah, I'll let you know. Okay, hangs up. He comes down, sits in front of me, and says, that guy's been calling me for about a week. He wants to buy the car, and he agreed that he'd pay the full $28,000 for the car. But, we have an agreement. He was very, very honorable about it. He says, we have an agreement, and if you're okay with it, we can do the deal. So I thought that was pretty stand-up of him. And what I told him, and sometimes the best or the shrewdest negotiating is honesty. And I told him, I said, look, we agreed to 23. The car's everything that you told me it was going to be. The honest truth is that, I liquidated myself entirely to purchase this car. All the money I have in the world is $20,000. And my father agreed to loan me the other three, but it's something I'd really kind of like to do for myself. So if you would accept $20,000, we can do the deal. Otherwise, I promised you, I'll get you the other three as the deal is. And he looked at me and said, "You got a deal, $20,000." And then he took me and my brother to dinner. And to this day, we're still in contact. He's just a wonderful man, and I'm just so thankful for it. And I've tried my best to pass that forwards. Then there was the whole story of getting the car there. So we paid him the money, and he has the car shipped to Buffalo, New York. The car shows up a few days before Christmas, 2002, and I go and I pick up the car in Buffalo because I can then do the importation myself and save a little bit of money. And I decided I was just going to drive it across the border and drive it home. So I go, I do all the importation paperwork, everything like that. Don't we get caught in a snowstorm on the way home? Tires that aren't really suited to the conditions and all that, and just skittering along a little bit. Got the car home, cleaned it all up, put it in the garage. One of the things that happened is once I got the car, there's always little things that you want to do to it, and you get project creep, and it gets a little out of hand. So the car had a set of Speedline wheels on it, which I didn't like, but I had also gotten the original 14-inch wheels, which I quite like. And so I was able to sell those Speedline wheels away, and I think I got something like $6,000 for them. It was a lot of money for those wheels, and I was able to finance doing some work on the car. So I started doing a little bit of work on the car, and project creep meant that it was taken apart quite a bit. And fast forward to the morning of the wedding, and the car is not completed. I am at a mechanic shop doing the last little bit of assembly on the car in a tuxedo. My brother's with me. He's also helping out because we're racing against time. And he tells me, he says, "Look, man, you got best man duties to take care of. Go, I'll bring you the car." So I went, shot across the city, did the best man stuff, and my brother delivered to me the car with under an hour to spare. And so my first real drive was driving my best friend to his wedding. And a few years later, I managed to drive to my own wedding with the car and still have it to this day, and that'll be the last one to leave the garage.
Hey, I'm Ed Bolian from VINwiki, and recently I accidentally bought another manual transmission LP640 on Cars and Bids. Unfortunately, I was bidding with money that I did not immediately or very easily have, and so my first call was to Premier Financial Services. The simple lease from Premier Financial Services is the most powerful tool in the world of exotic car financing. You get all the benefits of a traditional loan, like the ability to accumulate equity, pay it off at any time, and see exactly where you stand with an amortization table, but also all the great things about a lease, the tax treatment, the low payments, and things like that. So check out Premier Financial Services at the link in the description below to thank them for their support of VINwiki and to find out just how easy it can be to afford your dream car with Premier, or another one if that happens to you.